It's one of those ideas that feels, I don't know, almost dangerous to say out loud. You spend your entire life being told that vegetables are the absolute pillar of health. Eat your greens, an apple a day, all that. And then someone comes along and says, actually, that kale smoothie is trying to kill you.
It does sound like a conspiracy theory at first glance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But today, we're not looking at some fringe blogger ranting in a basement. We're looking at the work of Dr. Paul Saladino. This is a double-board certified physician,
Yeah.
psychiatry and functional medicine, and for about 5 years, he was the absolute king of the carnivore movement.
The Carnivore MD, yeah, I remember him. The guy who went viral for posting videos of himself eating raw liver, holding up those signs saying plants are bullshit. He was the face of that whole meat-only thing.
That's the one. But here's the twist, and honestly, this is why we're doing this deep dive today. We're analyzing his book, The Carnivore Code, and the whole metabolic model he built his career on. But we're putting it right next to his recent massive pivot. After years of preaching strict carnivore, he quit. He changed his mind.
Which is incredibly rare in the nutrition world. I mean, usually when people pick a dietary tribe, they just double down no matter what.
Exactly.
So our mission today isn't to tell you what to eat. We really want to unpack the logic. We need to understand this chemical warfare hypothesis, why he thinks plants are enemies, and then the specific physiology, the hormones and electrolytes that physically forced him to start eating carbs again.
Exactly. It's a fascinating case study in metabolic dogma versus, biological reality. It's about what happens when a theory collides with human physiology over a long timeline.
Okay, so let's start with the dogma, or I guess the anti-dogma. Where does a trained doctor even get the idea that plants are toxic? Because I assume he didn't just wake up one day with a vendetta against broccoli.
No, it started with a personal medical crisis, which is a really common theme in functional medicine. Saladino had severe, just debilitating eczema. He tried everything standard medicine had to offer, creams, steroids, you name it, and nothing worked. The only thing that finally cleared his skin was completely eliminating all plant matter from his diet.
So it was a subtraction technique. He just took everything away until the problem stopped.
Right. And when he saw it worked for him, he went down the research rabbit hole to explain why. And that led him to construct what he calls the metabolic trade-off theory. It's fundamentally an evolutionary argument about how humans became humans.
This is the timeline of human evolution, right? The fork in the road 2 million years ago.
Yes. The theory goes that our ancestors, Homo erectus, diverged from the primate lineage. Before this split, we had massive colons, sort of like what gorillas have today. And those big colons were basically fermentation tanks, designed to break down huge amounts of fibrous plant material and turn it into energy.
Because plants are hard to digest. You need a big vat of bacteria just to break down all that cellulose.
Exactly. But then we traded guts for brains. This is the concept of encephalization. Saladino argues that we started hunting and scavenging large animals. We switched to nutrient-dense meat rich in heme iron, B12, creatine, all that good stuff. And because this fuel was so efficient, our brains exploded in size and our digestive tracts shrank. We lost the fermentation tank because, well, we didn't need it anymore.
There's a specific data point from his book that really stuck with me on this, the stomach pH.
It's a very compelling detail. Saladino highlights that the human stomach is incredibly acidic, with a pH of roughly 1.5.
And for anyone who hasn't been in a chemistry class lately, that's extremely low, right?
It's incredibly corrosive.
Yeah.
I mean, for context, most herbivores and even other primates, they sit around a pH of 4 or 5. A pH of 1.5 is what you find in scavengers, vultures, hyenas, animals that need to digest rotting meat and kill off massive pathogen loads. Saladino uses this as a kind of smoking gun to argue that biologically we're designed to handle meat and fight bacteria, not to ferment salads.
Okay, so I follow the logic that we can eat meat. We're adapted for it, but that doesn't explain the hostility toward plants. Just because I'm designed to eat steak doesn't necessarily mean spinach is poison. Why does he frame it as chemical warfare?
This is the absolute core of the carnivore code. Think about survival strategies. If a wolf tries to eat a rabbit, the rabbit can run away. It can fight back. It has active defense mechanisms. Plants are stuck in the ground. They're immobile. If they want their genes to survive, they can't just sit there and be eaten.
So they fight with chemistry. They make themselves inedible.
Precisely. They evolve pesticides, complex compounds designed to discourage animals from eating them by making the animal sick, interfering with digestion, or disrupting hormones. Saladino argues that what we call antioxidants or superfoods are actually just plant defense chemicals that we have fundamentally misunderstood.
Give me an example, because if I go to the grocery store, everything has a superfood label on it.
Okay, let's look at broccoli. It contains isothiocyanates, specifically one called sulforaphane. Mainstream science loved sulforaphane. It activates something called the NRF2 pathway in your body, which turns on your own antioxidant defenses. Scientists call this hormesis. A little bit of stress makes the system stronger, like exercise.
But Saladino is saying this isn't like exercise.
He argues it's molecular hormesis with too high a cost. He calls it a dirty mechanism. Yes, it triggers an antioxidant response, but he claims sulforaphane also acts as a goitrogen, meaning it competes with iodine and messes with your thyroid function. It can even damage DNA in high concentrations.
So his perspective is, why ingest a toxin and trick your body into being healthy when you could just be healthy without all the collateral damage?
Exactly. And he applies this lens to almost everything. Take lectins, which are proteins found in beans, grains, and nightshades. He cites researchers like Stephen Gundry to argue that lectins physically damage the gut lining, leading to leaky gut. And that lets things into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. That triggers the immune system. Hello, autoimmune disease.
And what about oxalates? I feel like that's the one that scares people the most because it's in healthy things like spinach and almonds.
Oxalates are a major villain in this model. They're organic acids that bind to minerals like calcium and magnesium. Saladino explains that when you eat a spinach salad, the oxalates are literally stealing those minerals from your body to form crystals.
Kidney stones.
Yes, kidney stones are the classic symptom. But Saladino argues it goes further, that these microscopic crystals can lodge in joints, causing pain, or even in the thyroid. He sees it as this systemic accumulation of plant shrapnel.
And then you've got polyphenols, things like resveratrol in grapes. We've been told for years that's the French paradox, miracle molecule.
Saladino calls resveratrol a fairy tale. He points to data showing it may actually inhibit the body's androgen precursors, basically messing with testosterone production and hindering liver detoxification. He views it as a net negative. You're stressing your liver to process a chemical weapon and getting very little in return.
Wow. It's a complete inversion of the food pyramid. So if you accept this premise that plants are armed and dangerous, how do you actually eat? Because the carnivore code isn't just eat a burger. There are levels to this game.
He outlines 5 tiers. Tier 1 is carnivore-ish. This is where you eat mostly meat, but you keep the least toxic plants. Things like avocado, squash, maybe some berries. It's the entry point.
And then you have the lion diet, which sounds intense.
That's tier 2, and it is strict elimination. Water, salt, and ruminant meat. Beef, bison, lamb. That's it. No eggs, no dairy, no spices. This is usually a temporary intervention for people with severe autoimmune issues who need to calm their immune system down right now.
But the Varsity level tier 5, that's the one that caught my eye. I was reading the sample daily intake, and I honestly don't know if I could physically do it.
It's not for the casual dieter. Tier 5 is what Saladino considers the optimal human diet. It's nose to tail. A sample day isn't just a ribeye. It's a ribeye plus 100 grams of beef suet, pure hard-fat 6 raw egg yolks, 2 ounces of raw liver, and 2 ounces of raw kidney.
Raw kidney. I'm stuck on that. Why the obsession with organs? Why isn't steak enough?
It comes back to nutrient density. Muscle meat is great for protein and zinc, but it's relatively poor in vitamins like folate, vitamin C, manganese. In the wild, predators eat the organs first. The liver is the multivitamin of nature. Saladino argues that if you only eat muscle meat, you will eventually develop deficiencies. You have to eat the whole animal to be a functional human.
So for 5 years, this was the gospel. Meat, fat, organs, salt. Plants are the enemy. He built a huge following. He looked ripped. He seemed to have endless energy. And then in 2023, the narrative cracked.
It was a huge moment in that community. He went on a podcast and essentially said, I was wrong. I'm not a strict carnivore anymore.
And this wasn't just a cheat day. He hit a physiological wall. What actually happened to his body?
He documented a physiological crash that is really instructive. It started with his hormones. His testosterone levels tanked.
Which is ironic, right? Because the carnivore diet is marketed as the ultimate alpha diet. High-fat, cholesterol, red meat that's supposed to be rocket fuel for testosterone.
You would think so. But here's the biochemistry. When you eat 0 carbohydrates, your body's in a state of ketosis. You have to manufacture your own glucose to keep your brain alive, because the brain demands some sugar. This process is called gluconeogenesis, literally making new sugar.
And that's hard work for the body.
It is energetically expensive. And Saladino argues that being in that state constantly for years signaled to his body that he was in a survival situation. It raised his cortisol, the stress hormone. There's a kind of seesaw relationship between cortisol and testosterone. When chronic stress goes up, reproductive hormones go down. His body was essentially saying, we are starving, this is not the time to reproduce.
And then there were the heart issues. He mentioned palpitations.
Palpitations and severe muscle cramps. This brings us to the electrolyte mechanism, which is arguably the most important takeaway for anyone interested in low-carb diets. It is all about insulin.
We usually think of insulin as the bad guy that makes us fat.
Right. But insulin has a critical job in the kidneys. It tells the kidneys to reabsorb sodium. When you go zero carb, your insulin is rock bottom. Without that signal, the kidneys just open the floodgates. You just pee out all your sodium. And where sodium goes, potassium and magnesium follow.
So he was taking supplements, eating salt, but he couldn't hold on to it.
Exactly. It was passing right through him. This is called the natriuretic effect of fasting. He was chronically electrolyte depleted, which caused the heart palpitations and the sleep disturbances. He was waking up in the middle of the night, just wired.
Which again creates that stress loop. No sleep means more cortisol, means less testosterone.
Correct. He was stuck in a stress cycle caused by the very diet that was intended to optimize him.
So he had to pivot. But he didn't just go back to eating standard American food. He created a new framework called animal-based.
And the nuance here is key. He didn't say vegetables are good now. He maintained that leaves, stems, roots, and seeds are toxic. But he decided that fruit is safe.
Meat is the foundation, fruit is the decoration.
That's the new mantra. He reintroduced carbohydrates, but only from sources he believes plants want you to eat. From an evolutionary perspective, a plant wants an animal to eat its fruit. You eat the mango, you walk 5 miles, you poop out the seed with a little fertilizer packet. It's a symbiotic relationship.
So the plant doesn't put the chemical weapons in the fruit.
Generally, no. Or at least far fewer of them. So now his diet is meat, organs, raw dairy, fruit, and raw honey.
It seems like a convenient way to solve the electrolyte problem. You eat the fruit, you get a little spike in insulin, just enough to tell the kidneys to hold on to the salt, but you avoid the gut-shredding fiber of the kale.
That is precisely the logic. It targets the physiological failure points of the strict carnivore diet, the electrolytes and the glycogen, without reintroducing the gut irritancy fears.
But this new animal-based approach still puts him at odds with, well, pretty much everyone else in nutrition. There are still some massive conflicts with mainstream science. Let's talk about the fiber paradox.
This is a big one. Go to any dietitian, and they will tell you fiber is non-negotiable. You need it to bulk up stool and, more importantly, to feed your microbiome. Your gut bacteria ferment fiber into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which protects against colon cancer.
And Saladino says that's a myth.
He pushes back hard. He argues that fiber is essentially an irritant like scratching a wound to keep it open. He cites studies where removing fiber completely resolved idiopathic constipation. His view is, if you remove the irritant, the gut heals. You don't need fiber to poop.
That is a bold claim. Basically, dietitians are wrong, you're just clogging the pipes.
The counter-argument from the medical community is strong, though. They would say, sure, maybe you feel less bloated today, but by starving your microbiome of fiber for 20 years, you might be setting yourself up for colon cancer down the road. We just don't have long-term data on zero fiber populations living into their 80s in the modern world.
And then there's the elephant in the room. Cholesterol. If you're eating suet, eggs, and steak, your lipid panel is going to look interesting.
Interesting is a polite way to put it. On this diet, LDL cholesterol usually skyrockets. We are talking levels that would make a cardiologist faint.
And standard cardiology says high LDL equals plaque in the arteries equals heart attack. End of story.
It's called the lipid hypothesis. High levels of ApoB and LDL are causally linked to atherosclerosis. But Saladino argues this is bad science based on healthy user bias. Meaning that in most of those big studies, the people eating the most meat were also the ones smoking, drinking, and not exercising. So the meat got the blame for the lifestyle. Saladino believes that if you are metabolically healthy, meaning you have low insulin resistance and low inflammation, then high LDL isn't a problem. He actually claims LDL has protective immune functions.
He's betting the house on that. I mean, he's essentially betting his life that the American Heart Association is reading the data wrong.
It's a massive gamble. There's a phenotype called lean mass hyperresponders. People who get fit, go low carb, and see their LDL just explode. The debate right now is, are they going to die of heart attacks in 10 years, or are they superhumans? We honestly don't know yet.
But there is one area where he aligns with the wellness trends, and that's seed oils.
Yes, but even there he takes it to the extreme. He is militant about avoiding linoleic acid soybean oil, canola, corn oil. He claims these polyunsaturated fats integrate into our cell membranes and drive insulin resistance. He views them as the actual cause of heart disease, not the saturated fat.
And looking at the sources, mainstream science is a bit split on this.
It's complicated. Processed foods are definitely bad. But pure nutritional trials often show that replacing saturated fat with linoleic acid lowers heart disease risk. So even here, Saladino is picking a fight with the consensus. He argues those short-term studies missed the long-term oxidative damage these oils cause.
So, stepping back, what are we looking at here? We have a doctor who cured his own autoimmune disease by ignoring all dietary advice. Then, he realized that ignoring all of it was hurting his hormones, so he adjusted. It feels like a journey of extremes.
I think the synthesis here is distinguishing between a therapeutic intervention and a lifestyle. The carnivore code, that strict elimination, seems to be an incredibly powerful tool for the sick. If your gut is on fire, if you have severe autoimmunity, cutting out everything but meat acts as a hard reset. It removes every potential trigger.
But you can't keep the reset button held down forever.
Exactly. Saladino's own physiology proved that. The human body eventually demanded carbohydrates and electrolyte balance. The shift to animal-based is an admission that we might be facultative carnivores, but we aren't obligate carnivores like cats. We have some metabolic flexibility, and we probably need to use it.
It really challenges that binary thinking we see on social media. It's always vegan versus carnivore. This middle ground, fruit is okay, kale is bad, is a weird, specific nuance.
It also brings up the concept of bioindividuality. Saladino is a genetic outlier in some ways. What works for him might destroy someone else's gut or send someone else's cholesterol into the danger zone.
It really makes you question the whole idea of a perfect diet. Here's a guy who dedicated his life, his career, and his reputation to a specific way of eating. He had the best blood work tracking money can buy, and he still had to change it.
It implies that nutrition isn't static. The diet that heals you when you're 30 and sick might not be the diet that sustains you when you're 40 and active.
That is a provocative thought to leave with. Maybe the best diet doesn't exist. Maybe nutrition is just a constant series of experiments, and we should be listening to our own biofeedback loops louder than we listen to the influencers.
Or at least listen to your heart palpitations. They're usually trying to tell you something.
Fair point. Question the kale, but listen to your heart. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.